The moment Zara saw Derek walking toward her table at the coffee shop, her heart sank into her stomach like a stone dropped in deep water. 3 weeks. It had been 3 weeks since she changed her phone number, moved apartments and started taking different routes to work. 3 weeks of looking over her shoulder, jumping at shadows, and sleeping with a chair pushed against her bedroom door. Yet here he was, that familiar twisted smile on his face, moving through the crowded cafe like he owned the place. Her hands started shaking as she gripped her coffee cup. The same hands that used to tremble when he would corner her in their old apartment, demanding to know where she had been, who she had talked to, why she came home 5 minutes later than usual. The same hands that had packed her belongings in garbage bags in the middle of the night while he was passed out on the couch, drunk again. "Found you," Derek said as he slid into the seat across from her without being invited. His voice was calm, almost pleasant, but Zara knew better. She had learned to read the danger signs in the set of his jaw, the way his fingers drummed against the table, the fake smile that never reached his eyes. "I don't know how you keep finding me," she whispered, trying to keep her voice steady. The coffee shop was full of people, but somehow she felt completely alone and exposed. "You can't hide from me, baby. You know that." He leaned forward, and she caught the smell of alcohol on his breath even though it was only 2 in the afternoon. "I've been patient. I've given you space to get this silly idea out of your head. But it's time to come home now." The word, home, made her stomach turn. That apartment had never been home. It had been a prison with pretty curtains and framed photos that hid the holes he had punched in the walls during his rages. Home was supposed to be safe, warm, a place where you could breathe freely. What they had shared was nothing like that. "I'm not coming back, Derek. We've been over this." She started to stand up, but his hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. Not hard enough to leave marks, he had learned to be more careful about that, but firm enough to make his point. "Sit down," he said quietly. "We're not done talking." Zara's eyes darted around the coffee shop. A few people had noticed their interaction, but most were buried in their laptops or conversations. She wanted to scream, to make a scene, but Derek had taught her well over the years. Making a scene only made things worse later when they were alone. "Look, I know I made some mistakes," Derek continued, his voice taking on that familiar pleading tone that used to work on her. "I've been going to those anger management classes like you wanted. I've been sober for 2 weeks now. I'm changing, Zara. For us. For you." She had heard these promises before. After the first time he shoved her into a wall. After he threw her phone across the room and broke it because another man had called her by mistake. After he isolated her from her friends and family, convincing her that they didn't really care about her like he did. The promises always came with flowers, with tears, with passionate declarations of love that felt so real in the moment. "I can't do this anymore," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't keep having this conversation." His grip on her wrist tightened slightly. "You can't just throw away 2 years like it meant nothing. I love you, Zara. I know I have problems, but I'm working on them. Doesn't that count for something?" The worst part was that she could hear the genuine pain in his voice. Derek wasn't some cartoon villain who enjoyed causing suffering. He was a broken man who had never learned how to love without possessing, how to care without controlling. But his brokenness didn't make her less broken. His pain didn't erase hers. "Love isn't supposed to hurt," she said, trying to pull her wrist free. "Love isn't supposed to make you afraid to come home. It's not supposed to make you change everything about yourself just to avoid setting off someone's temper." "I never hit you," Derek said, and there was that defensive edge creeping into his voice that she knew too well. "I never laid a hand on you, Zara. Some women would be grateful for a man who provides for them, who cares enough to worry about where they are all the time." The familiar guilt tried to creep in. He was right that he had never hit her. But there were so many other ways to hurt someone. Words that cut deeper than any slap. Isolation that felt like suffocation. The constant walking on eggshells, never knowing what small thing might trigger hours of accusations and interrogation. "Caring and controlling aren't the same thing," she said, finally managing to pull her wrist free. She rubbed the spot where his fingers had been, knowing it would be tender tomorrow even though he hadn't squeezed hard enough to bruise. Derek's expression started to shift, the fake patience melting away to reveal the anger underneath. "You're being dramatic. You always do this, make me out to be some kind of monster when all I want is to take care of you. You can't make it on your own, Zara. You couldn't even keep a job before you met me." That was another lie he had convinced her to believe for too long. She had quit her job at his insistence, because he said he made enough money for both of them, because he wanted her to be home when he got off work, because her boss was too friendly, and it made Derek uncomfortable. Every choice that had made her smaller, more dependent, more trapped, had been presented as his way of loving her. "I have a job now," she said. "I have my own apartment. I'm doing fine on my own." "For now," Derek said, and something cold flickered in his eyes. "But you can't avoid me forever. This city isn't that big. And you can't stay scared forever either. Eventually you're going to want someone to come home to. Someone who knows you better than anyone else ever could." The threat was subtle but clear. He would keep finding her. Keep showing up at her work, her favorite places, anywhere she tried to build a new life. The restraining order she had considered getting would only make him more careful, not stop him entirely. And worst of all, part of her was tired. Tired of looking over her shoulder, tired of starting over, tired of being alone. "I need to go," she said, standing up quickly and grabbing her purse. "Please don't follow me." "This isn't over, Zara," Derek called after her as she hurried toward the exit. "You can't run forever. I know you better than you know yourself. You'll realize you made a mistake, and when you do, I'll be waiting." She pushed through the glass doors of the coffee shop and stepped into the busy afternoon crowd on the sidewalk. Her heart was pounding so hard she felt dizzy. The familiar panic was setting in, the feeling that no matter where she went or what she did, she would never really be free. Derek had a way of making her feel like she was overreacting, like she was crazy for being afraid of someone who just loved her too much. But as she walked quickly down the street, trying to blend into the crowd, Zara knew she wasn't crazy. She was just tired of being afraid, and she had no idea how much longer she could keep running from a man who seemed determined to make her his forever, whether she wanted to be or not. The afternoon sun felt too bright, the noise of traffic too loud. Everything felt overwhelming when Derek showed up like this, reminding her that her freedom was more fragile than she wanted to admit. She needed to think, to figure out her next move, but first she needed to get somewhere safe where she could breathe again. Zara spent the rest of the afternoon walking aimlessly through downtown, taking random turns and checking over her shoulder every few minutes. By the time evening fell, her feet hurt from walking in heels and her mind was exhausted from the constant vigilance. She found herself standing outside Russo's, an upscale Italian restaurant she had always wanted to try but could never afford. Through the large windows she could see couples sharing wine and laughing together. The warm lighting and elegant atmosphere looked like everything she had dreamed of when she was younger, before Derek had convinced her that fancy restaurants were a waste of money and that she should be happy with fast food and movie nights at home. "Excuse me, miss? Are you all right?" Zara turned to find a well-dressed older man looking at her with concern. He was probably in his 60s, with kind eyes and an expensive suit that fit him perfectly. "Oh yes, I'm fine," she said quickly, embarrassed to be caught staring through restaurant windows like some kind of vagrant. "I was just deciding if I wanted to eat here." The man smiled. "It's an excellent choice. My son owns this place actually. The food is outstanding, and the atmosphere is perfect for someone who looks like they need a peaceful evening." Something about his warm, fatherly manner made Zara's eyes fill with tears. She hadn't realized how much she missed having someone speak to her with simple kindness, without any hidden agenda or expectation. "I'm sorry," she said, wiping her eyes quickly. "It's been a difficult day." "No need to apologize. We all have those days." He paused, studying her face. "Would you like some advice from an old man?" Zara nodded, not trusting her voice. Sometimes the best way to end a difficult day is to do something nice for yourself. Something that reminds you that you deserve good things. He gestured toward the restaurant. "The hostess will take excellent care of you. Tell her Vincent Carlyle recommended you get a table by the window." "Thank you," Zara managed. "That's very kind." "Kindness costs nothing," Vincent said with a smile. "Enjoy your evening, my dear." As he walked away, Zara stood there for a moment, surprised by the unexpected encounter. Maybe it was a sign. Maybe she needed to stop letting Derek's reappearance ruin her entire day. She had worked hard to build this new life, and she deserved to enjoy it. Taking a deep breath, she walked into Russo's. The hostess, a young woman with a bright smile, greeted her warmly. "Good evening. Table for one?" "Yes, please." "Vincent Carlyle said you might have a table by the window?" The woman's face lit up. "Oh, Mr. Carlyle. Of course. Right this way." The table was perfect. Tucked into a corner with a view of the bustling street outside, but private enough that she felt safe. The menu was more expensive than anything she usually allowed herself, but Derek's unexpected appearance had left her feeling reckless. She ordered the salmon and a glass of white wine, determined to prove to herself that she could have a nice evening alone. As she waited for her food, Zara pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts. She had so few numbers now, just work colleagues and the bare minimum of necessary people. Derek had gradually isolated her from her friends during their relationship, finding reasons why each one was toxic, or jealous, or trying to break them up. By the time she left him, she had no one to call for support. Her finger hovered over her sister's number. Tanya lived across the country now, busy with her own family and career. They had talked a few times since Zara left Derek, but the conversations were always strained. Tanya had never liked Derek, had warned Zara repeatedly that he was controlling, and there was an unspoken, "I told you so," in every interaction now. The wine arrived and Zara took a sip, feeling some of the tension leave her shoulders. The restaurant was filling up with the dinner crowd, and she found herself people watching. A young couple near the bar was clearly on a first date, nervous and excited. An older couple by the window seemed comfortable in the kind of easy silence that came from decades together. A group of friends was celebrating something, laughing loudly over shared appetizers. "Your salmon, miss." The waiter set down a plate that looked like it belonged in a magazine. The fish was perfectly cooked, accompanied by roasted vegetables and a sauce that smelled incredible. For the first time all day, Zara felt herself relax. She was halfway through her meal when she noticed him. A man sitting alone at the bar, occasionally glancing in her direction. He was handsome in an understated way, tall, with dark hair and an expensive-looking suit that fit him like it was custom-made. But what caught her attention wasn't his looks. It was the way he was sitting, slightly turned toward the door, his eyes scanning the room periodically like he was watching for someone. The behavior was so familiar it made her stomach clench. Derek used to sit exactly like that in restaurants, hyper-aware of everyone around them, especially any man who might look at Zara. She told herself she was being paranoid, that not every man who paid attention to his surroundings was dangerous, but the similarity was unsettling. She tried to focus on her food, but she could feel the man's eyes on her. When she finally looked up again, he was definitely watching her. Their eyes met across the room, and instead of looking away embarrassed like most people would, he smiled and raised his wine glass slightly in acknowledgement. Zara felt heat rise in her cheeks. She wasn't used to male attention anymore. During her relationship with Derek, other men had learned to stay away from her. Derek made sure of that with his possessive behavior and hostile glares. Since leaving him, she had been so focused on rebuilding her life that she hadn't even considered the possibility of meeting someone new. The man at the bar was still looking at her, but his expression wasn't predatory or demanding like Derek's had been. It was curious, appreciative but respectful. When the bartender spoke to him, he turned away politely, giving her space. Zara finished her meal slowly, savoring both the food and the feeling of being somewhere beautiful and safe. The wine had relaxed her enough that Derek's earlier appearance felt like something that had happened days ago rather than hours. She was debating whether to order dessert when her phone buzzed with a text message. Her blood ran cold when she saw Derek's name on the screen. "I saw you go into that fancy restaurant. Playing dress-up won't make you someone you're not. You don't belong in places like that." Her hands started shaking. How had he found her? Had he been following her all afternoon while she walked around downtown? The thought of him watching her, tracking her movements, made her feel sick. Another text came through, "I'm across the street. Come outside so we can talk like adults." Zara's heart started racing. She looked toward the windows, but the glass was tinted and she couldn't see the street clearly from her angle. He was out there waiting for her. The safe, beautiful evening she had tried to create for herself was ruined. She signaled for the check, her hands still trembling as she pulled out her credit card. All she wanted was to get home, lock her door, and figure out what to do next. Maybe it was time to consider moving to a different city entirely. The thought was exhausting, but if Derek could find her anywhere in town, maybe distance was the only solution. As she waited for the check, she noticed the man from the bar walking toward her table. Panic shot through her. The last thing she needed was another man paying attention to her when Derek was literally watching from across the street. "Excuse me," the stranger said when he reached her table. His voice was deep and pleasant, with a slight accent she couldn't place. "I hope you don't mind me approaching you, but you look upset. Is everything all right?" Up close, he was even more handsome than she had realized. His dark eyes were warm with genuine concern, and there was something about his presence that felt calm and steady rather than threatening. "I'm fine," she said automatically, then winced as her phone buzzed with another text from Derek. "That doesn't look like fine," the man said gently. "I'm Ryan, by the way. I wasn't sure if I should say something, but you look like you might need help." "It's complicated," Zara said, glancing toward the windows again. "My ex-boyfriend he's outside. He's been following me." Ryan's expression immediately became more serious. "Following you? Are you safe?" I don't know, she admitted. He's not violent exactly, but he won't leave me alone. I've been trying to avoid him for weeks, but he always finds me. Do you want me to call the police? No, Zara said quickly. He hasn't done anything illegal. He's just persistent. Ryan studied her face for a moment, and she had the strange feeling that he understood more than she was saying. Would it help if you weren't alone when you left? The offer surprised her. She had learned not to trust strangers, especially attractive men who seemed too good to be true. But there was something about Ryan that felt different. Maybe it was the way he had approached her, respectful, concerned, not demanding her attention but offering help. You don't even know me, she said. No, but I know what it looks like when someone is scared. And I know that sometimes having another person around can change the whole dynamic of a situation. Zara's phone buzzed again. This time Derek's message was more direct. Stop playing games and come outside. You're embarrassing yourself. The familiar shame tried to creep in. Derek had always been good at making her feel like she was the one causing problems, like her fear and discomfort were character flaws rather than reasonable responses to his behavior. What exactly are you suggesting? She asked Ryan. Well, he said, sitting down across from her without permission, but somehow making it feel natural rather than intrusive. Your ex is expecting you to leave alone and upset. What if you left looking happy and confident instead? What if he saw that other people find you interesting and worth spending time with? You want to pretend to be my boyfriend? I want to walk you safely to wherever you're going next, Ryan corrected. What happens after that is up to you. Zara looked at this stranger who was offering to help her, trying to figure out his angle. In her experience, men didn't help women without expecting something in return. But Ryan's offer felt genuine, and more importantly, she was running out of options. Okay, she said finally. But I should warn you, my ex can be intense. Ryan smiled, and something about his confidence made her feel a little safer. Don't worry about that. I can handle intense. As they prepared to leave the restaurant, Ryan excused himself for a moment and walked toward the bar. Zara watched him speak quietly to the bartender, who nodded and made a phone call. She couldn't hear what was being said, but something about the interaction seemed important. When Ryan returned, he looked more relaxed. Ready? He asked, offering her his arm. Zara hesitated for just a moment before taking it. His arm felt solid and warm, and she was surprised by how natural the gesture felt. They walked toward the exit together, and she could see Ryan scanning the street through the windows, his expression alert but calm. There, she whispered as they stepped outside, nodding toward a figure standing across the street under a lamppost. Derek was trying to look casual, but his posture was tense with barely controlled anger. I see him, Ryan said quietly. Just stay close to me and act like you're having a good time. Derek started walking toward them as soon as they appeared on the sidewalk. Zara felt her body tense automatically, but Ryan's steady presence beside her kept her from panicking. Zara, Derek called out as he approached. I've been waiting for you. Hello, Ryan said pleasantly before Zara could respond. You must be Derek. Zara mentioned you might stop by. Derek looked confused by Ryan's friendly tone. He had clearly been prepared for a confrontation, but Ryan was treating the situation like a normal social interaction. And you are? Derek asked, his voice tight with suspicion. Ryan Carlisle, he said, extending his hand. Nice to meet you. Derek ignored the offered handshake, focusing his attention on Zara instead. We need to talk. Privately. Actually, Ryan said smoothly, we were just heading to another spot for drinks. You're welcome to join us if you'd like. The invitation was clearly not genuine. Ryan's tone made it obvious he was being polite rather than welcoming, but it threw Derek off balance. He had been prepared for Zara to cower or for her companion to be confrontational. He didn't know how to respond to someone who was being cordially dismissive. Zara and I have things to discuss, Derek said, trying to regain control of the situation. Personal things. I'm sure you do, Ryan agreed. But maybe this isn't the best time or place for that conversation. The street outside a restaurant isn't really the ideal setting for working through relationship issues. Derek's face was starting to flush with anger. This doesn't concern you. You're right, Ryan said calmly. It doesn't. But Zara asked me to walk her to her car, so that's what I'm going to do. He looked at Derek directly, and something in his expression made it clear that the politeness was a choice, not a necessity. I'm sure you understand. For a moment, the three of them stood there in tense silence. Zara could feel the familiar knot of anxiety in her stomach as she waited for Derek's reaction. In the past, Any perceived challenge to his authority over her had resulted in hours of accusations and emotional manipulation. But something was different this time. Derek kept glancing at Ryan, clearly trying to assess him as a threat. Ryan was taller and broader than Derek, but more than that, he carried himself with a quiet confidence that suggested he wasn't easily intimidated. "Fine," Derek said finally. "But this isn't over, Zara. We still need to talk." "Maybe," she said, finding her voice for the first time since the confrontation began. "But not tonight." Derek's eyes flashed with anger, but he took a step back. "I'll call you tomorrow." "She'll think about it," Ryan said before Zara could respond. "Have a good evening, Derek." They walked away together, leaving Derek standing on the sidewalk. Zara didn't look back, but she could feel him watching them until they turned the corner. "My car is in the parking garage 2 blocks down," she said once they were out of sight. "Good. We'll make sure you get there safely." They walked in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Zara was processing what had just happened, amazed by how different the encounter had been from her usual interactions with Derek. Having someone else there had changed everything. Derek's intimidation tactics didn't work as well with an audience. "Thank you," she said finally. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been there." "You would have figured it out," Ryan said. "You're stronger than you think." "I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm constantly running and hiding." "Running and hiding from someone who won't take no for an answer takes strength," Ryan pointed out. "A lot of people would have given up and gone back by now." They reached the parking garage, and Zara felt an unexpected sadness that the evening was ending. For a brief moment, she had felt protected and cared for without having to give up her independence in return. It was a feeling she hadn't experienced in years. "Can I ask you something?" she said as they stopped next to her car. "Of course. Why did you help me? You don't know anything about me or my situation. For all you know, I could be the problem in this scenario." Ryan was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. "I have a sister," he said finally. "She went through something similar a few years ago. I learned to recognize the signs, the way someone looks when they're scared but trying to hide it, the way they jump when their phone buzzes, the way they scan every room they enter looking for exits." "What happened to her?" "She got away. It took time and help from people who cared about her, but she built a new life. She's happy now." Zara felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm glad she made it out." "You will too," Ryan said with certainty. "This won't last forever." They stood there for a moment, neither wanting to end the conversation. Zara found herself studying Ryan's face, trying to memorize it. She had no idea if she would ever see him again, but she wanted to remember this feeling of being treated with kindness and respect. "I should probably go," she said reluctantly. "Probably," Ryan agreed, but he didn't step away from her car. "Ryan." "Yes." Would you like to have coffee sometime? I mean, if you're interested. I understand if you're not, given the circumstances and everything, but I thought maybe." She was rambling, nervous in a way that felt completely different from the fear Derek inspired. This was the good kind of nervous, the kind that came with possibility rather than threat. "I would love to have coffee with you," Ryan said, and his smile was warm and genuine. "When? Tomorrow? If that's not too soon. I know this whole situation is probably more drama than most people want to deal with." "Tomorrow is perfect." "And Zara?" "Yes. Everyone has drama. At least yours comes with a good reason to be cautious. That shows wisdom, not weakness." They exchanged phone numbers, and Ryan waited until she was safely in her car with the doors locked before walking away. As Zara drove home, she couldn't stop smiling. For the first time in months, she felt like something good might be possible in her life. She was almost to her apartment when her phone rang. Derek's name appeared on the screen, and her good mood instantly evaporated. She let it go to voicemail, but the damage was done. The fear was back, creeping into her chest and making it hard to breathe. When she got home, she checked all the locks twice and pushed a chair against the door. Then she listened to Derek's voicemail. "Who is this guy, Zara? Where did you meet him? You think you can just replace me with some stranger you picked up at a restaurant? I know you better than that. You're not the type of person who talks to random men. So either you've been lying to me about seeing someone else, or this is all an act to make me jealous. Either way, we're going to talk about it. I'll give you tonight to think about what you want to say, but tomorrow we're having a real conversation. Just the two of us." Zara deleted the message and turned off her phone. She sat on her couch in the dark, trying to hold on to the feeling of safety she had experienced with Ryan, but Derek's voice kept echoing in her head. He was right about one thing: she normally didn't talk to strangers. The fact that she had felt comfortable with Ryan so quickly was unusual for her. But maybe that was a good thing. Maybe it meant she was healing, becoming more like the person she used to be before Derek convinced her that everyone was a threat and he was the only one she could trust. Maybe meeting Ryan was a sign that she was ready to start building connections with people again. She fell asleep on the couch that night, still wearing her dress from dinner, dreaming about dark eyes and a gentle voice that made her feel safe. Zara woke up to someone pounding on her door. Disoriented and still in yesterday's clothes, she stumbled toward the sound, her heart racing. Through the peephole, she could see Derek standing in her hallway, his hair messy like he had been running his hands through it. "I know you're in there, Zara. Your car is in the parking lot." She checked the time on her phone, 6:30 a.m. He had been up all night, probably walking around the city working himself into a rage. This was Derek at his most dangerous, when he had convinced himself that he was the victim and she was being unreasonable. "Go away, Derek," she called through the door. "I'm not talking to you right now. We need to discuss what happened last night. You embarrassed me in front of that guy, making me look like some kind of stalker when all I want is to work things out with my girlfriend." "I'm not your girlfriend anymore. Don't say that. You don't mean that." His voice was getting louder, and Zara worried about her neighbors complaining. "Look, I'm sorry I got upset yesterday. I know I came on too strong. But seeing you with another man, it made me crazy. You have to understand that." This was the pattern she knew so well. Derek would push and push until she gave in, then he would apologize and promise to do better, then the cycle would start all over again. The apologies always sounded sincere because in his mind, his behavior was justified by his feelings. "I understand that you're upset," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. "But that doesn't give you the right to show up at my apartment at 6 in the morning. This is harassment, Derek." "Harassment? For wanting to talk to someone I love? For trying to save our relationship?" Now he sounded genuinely hurt, and Zara felt the familiar guilt trying to creep in. "I'm not some stranger, Zara. I'm the man who took care of you for 2 years. The man who was ready to marry you." The mention of marriage made her stomach turn. Derek had brought up marriage frequently during their relationship, but always as a way to make her feel guilty for not being grateful enough. "Look how much I love you," he would say. "I want to marry you, and you're worried about stupid things like me checking your phone. Derek, please just go home. We can talk later, but not like this." When can we talk? "You won't answer my calls, you moved without telling me where, you changed your number. How are we supposed to work things out if you won't even communicate with me?" The reasonable tone was back, the one that used to make her doubt her own perceptions. Derek was very good at making himself sound like the rational one who just wanted to fix things, while painting her as dramatic and unreasonable. "I need space," she said. "I need time to think." "You've had 3 weeks to think. How much more time do you need?" "I'm trying to be patient here, but you're not giving me anything to work with." Zara leaned against the door, feeling trapped. Even with a locked door between them, Derek's presence felt overwhelming. She could picture him on the other side, probably pacing back and forth, working himself up into an even bigger emotional state. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. "Good morning. Looking forward to coffee later. I hope you slept well." The simple, kind message felt like a lifeline. Here was someone who wasn't demanding anything from her, wasn't trying to make her feel guilty for having boundaries. Someone who had helped her without expecting anything in return. "I have to go to work," she called to Derek. "I can't do this right now." "It's Saturday, Zara. You don't work on Saturdays." He was right, and the fact that he still knew her schedule after 3 weeks apart was unsettling. How much was he still monitoring her life? "I have plans today," she said. "With him? With that guy from last night?" Derek's voice immediately became sharp with suspicion. "You just met him yesterday and you're already making plans with him? That's not like you, Zara. You don't trust people that easily." "Maybe I'm changing." "People don't change that much that fast. Something's not right about this whole situation." Derek was quiet for a moment, and Zara could almost hear him thinking. When he spoke again, his tone was different, calculating rather than emotional. "I did some research on your new friend," he said. "Ryan Carlisle. Interesting family name. You know what I think? I think you're trying to make me jealous by dating someone with money. But guys like that don't date girls like you seriously, Zara. They have fun with you and then they go back to their own kind." The words hit exactly where Derek intended them to. All her old insecurities about not being good enough, smart enough, successful enough came flooding back. During their relationship, Derek had been very good at reminding her of all the ways she fell short, all the reasons she should be grateful that someone like him wanted to be with her. "That's not what this is about," she said, but her voice sounded less certain than before. isn't it? You met him in an expensive restaurant you can't afford, he swoops in like some kind of hero, and now you're having coffee with him. It sounds like a fantasy, Zara. And fantasies don't last. Part of her knew that Derek was trying to manipulate her, trying to make her doubt herself and the connection she had felt with Ryan. But part of her wondered if he was right. What did someone like Ryan, clearly wealthy, confident, successful, want with someone like her? I need you to leave, she said, trying to sound stronger than she felt. Fine. I'll go. But think about what I said, okay? I know you better than anyone and I know when you're making a mistake. Don't throw away something real for something that's just going to hurt you. She heard his footsteps moving away from the door, then the sound of the elevator. Only then did she allow herself to breathe normally again. Zara spent the next hour in the shower, trying to wash away the feeling of Derek's presence. But his words kept echoing in her head. What if he was right about Ryan? What if she was setting herself up for disappointment by believing that someone like him could be genuinely interested in her? By the time she was dressed and ready to leave for her coffee date, she had almost convinced herself to cancel. It would be easier to stay home, avoid the possibility of embarrassment or rejection. Derek might be controlling and manipulative, but at least his interest in her was real, even if it was unhealthy. But as she stood in front of her mirror, she remembered how she had felt the night before. Safe, respected, interesting. Ryan had looked at her like she was worth listening to, worth protecting. Even if it didn't lead to anything romantic, she deserved to have people in her life who treated her well. She picked up her phone and called Ryan. Good morning. His voice was warm and happy to hear from her. I was just thinking about you. Hi, she said, suddenly feeling shy. I was wondering if we could meet a little earlier than we planned? I've had a difficult morning and I could use some friendly company. Of course. Are you okay? Do you need me to come pick you up? The offer was so genuinely caring that Zara felt tears prick her eyes. When was the last time someone had offered to help without making her feel like she owed them something in return? No, I can meet you. Where did you want to go for coffee? There's a little place called Morning Glory on 5th Street. Do you know it? I'll find it. Give me 30 minutes? Perfect. Zara? Yes. Whatever happened this morning, you don't have to handle it alone anymore. Okay. The simple statement made her feel lighter than she had in hours. Okay. See you soon. Morning Glory was exactly the kind of coffee shop Zara loved. Small, cozy, with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. She found Ryan at a corner table, already nursing a cup of coffee and reading something on his phone. When he saw her come in, his face lit up with a smile that made her stomach flutter in the best possible way. You look beautiful, he said as she sat down across from him. Though you also look like you could use some caffeine. That obvious? She asked, managing a smile. Your ex showed up this morning, didn't he? Zara was surprised by how easily Ryan read the situation. How did you know? Lucky guess. What happened? As Ryan signaled for the waitress to bring another coffee, Zara found herself telling him about Derek's early morning visit. She was careful not to make Derek sound too threatening. She didn't want Ryan to think she was being dramatic, but she explained how exhausting it was to constantly look over her shoulder. He's right about one thing, she said after the waitress brought her coffee. I don't usually trust people quickly. The fact that I'm here with you, that I felt comfortable with you last night, it's not normal for me. What do you think that means? Ryan asked. I don't know. Maybe I'm being reckless. Maybe I'm so desperate to feel normal again that I'm making poor decisions. Ryan was quiet for a moment, stirring his coffee thoughtfully. Can I tell you what I think? She nodded. I think you're learning to trust your instincts again. Someone spent a lot of time convincing you that your feelings and perceptions were wrong, so now you second-guess everything. But your instincts about people are probably better than you realize. What makes you say that? You left him. However difficult it was, however much pressure he put on you to stay, you recognized that the relationship wasn't healthy and you got out. That takes good instincts and a lot of courage. Zara had never thought about it that way. She had always focused on how long it took her to leave, how many times she almost went back, how weak she felt during the whole process. But Ryan was right. She had recognized the problem and taken action to fix it. Tell me about yourself, she said, wanting to change the subject from her problems. What do you do for work? I work in family business, Ryan said, which wasn't really an answer. What about you? I'm a graphic designer. Well, I'm trying to be. I work for a small marketing company right now, but I'm hoping to build up my freelance work eventually. What kind of designs do you like to create? For the next hour they talked about art and design, books and movies, places they wanted to travel. The conversation flowed easily, and Zara found herself laughing more than she had in months. Ryan was intelligent and funny, but more than that, he seemed genuinely interested in what she had to say. He asked follow-up questions and remembered details from earlier in their conversation. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said during a lull in the conversation. "Sure. Last night, when you were talking to the bartender before we left the restaurant, what was that about?" Ryan smiled. "You're observant. I was asking him to keep an eye on the situation outside, maybe call for backup if things got heated with your ex." "Backup? Security? My family has some connections in the city. I wanted to make sure we had options if Derek became aggressive." There was something about the way Ryan said connections that made Zara curious, but before she could ask more questions, her phone started ringing. Derek's name appeared on the screen. "Don't answer it," Ryan said gently. "He'll just keep calling." "Then let him keep calling. You don't owe him your time or attention every time he decides he wants to talk." The phone stopped ringing, then immediately started again. Derek was nothing if not persistent. Other people in the coffee shop were starting to look in their direction. "I should take this," Zara said. "Just to make him stop." "Zara, no. Every time you answer his calls, you're teaching him that harassment works. You're rewarding the behavior you want him to stop." She knew Ryan was right, but the ringing phone was making her anxious. Derek would interpret her not answering as a slight, and his anger would just build up until their next confrontation. "You don't understand," she said. "If I ignore him, he'll just get worse. He's already getting worse. Ignoring your boundaries, showing up at your apartment, calling repeatedly, this is escalation. And it's going to keep escalating whether you answer his calls or not." The phone stopped ringing, then immediately buzzed with a text message. Then another. Then another. "He's texting now," Zara said, looking at her phone. "Don't read them." "What?" "Don't read the messages. Every time you read one, you're giving him access to your thoughts and emotions. You're letting him control how you feel even when he's not physically present." Zara stared at Ryan, realizing he was absolutely right. She had been so focused on managing Derek's emotions, on trying to keep him calm and prevent his anger from building up, that she had never considered simply refusing to engage. But what if it's important? What if there's an emergency? Then he can call 911 like everyone else. "Zara, emergencies don't happen via text message every day. This is just another way for him to maintain control over your attention." Her phone buzzed again. And again. Derek was sending message after message, probably getting more frustrated with each one she didn't respond to. "This is hard," she admitted. "I know. But you're stronger than you think." Ryan reached across the table and covered her hand with his. The touch was gentle and warm, completely different from Derek's possessive grabbing. "What if we turned off your phone for the rest of our coffee date?" he suggested. "Just for an hour or two. The world won't end, and you deserve to have a conversation without interruptions." The idea of turning off her phone felt both terrifying and liberating. She had become so accustomed to being available to Derek whenever he wanted her attention that the thought of being unreachable felt like freedom. "Okay," she said, powering down her phone. "But just for a little while." "Good girl," Ryan said, and there was pride in his voice that made her feel warm all over. With her phone off, Zara felt like she could breathe again. They ordered pastries and talked about lighter topics. Ryan told her about his travels, his love of architecture, his complicated relationship with his family's expectations. Zara found herself sharing stories about her childhood, her dreams of starting her own design business, her fear that she had wasted too many years in a relationship that held her back. "You haven't wasted anything," Ryan said firmly. "Everything you've been through has taught you something valuable about what you want and what you won't accept. That knowledge is going to serve you well going forward." "How are you so wise about relationships?" she asked. "Are you speaking from experience?" Ryan's expression became more guarded. "I've seen what happens when people don't value themselves enough to demand better treatment. I've also seen what's possible when they do." There was something in his tone that suggested personal experience, but Zara didn't push. Everyone had stories they weren't ready to share, and she was grateful that Ryan respected her boundaries without demanding that she respect his in return. "I should probably head home soon," she said reluctantly. "I have some freelance work to catch up on. Can I walk you to your car again?" "You don't have to do that." "I want to. Besides, you haven't turned your phone back on yet. For all we know, your ex is camped out in the parking lot." The reminder of Derek's behavior sent a chill through her. She had been so relaxed during their coffee date that she had almost forgotten about the morning's confrontation. "You're right," she said, turning her phone back on. Immediately, it started buzzing with notifications. 12 missed calls and 23 text messages, all from Derek. Don't read them, Ryan said quickly, seeing her expression. Whatever he has to say can wait until you're in a safe place with time to process it properly. They walked to her car together, and once again Ryan waited until she was safely inside with the doors locked before saying goodbye. As he leaned down to her window, he looked more serious than she had seen him all day. Zara, I want you to promise me something. What? If Derek shows up at your apartment again, or if you feel unsafe for any reason, call me immediately. Don't try to handle it alone. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Promise me. Looking into his concerned eyes, Zara felt something shift inside her chest. For so long she had been completely alone with her fear and uncertainty. Having someone offer to help, someone who didn't want anything from her except her safety, felt like a gift she wasn't sure she deserved. I promise, she said. Ryan smiled and stepped back from her car. Good. I'll call you tonight to check in. As Zara drove home, she found herself smiling despite the pile of angry messages waiting on her phone. For the first time in years she felt like she had an ally, someone who was on her side without trying to control her choices. It was a feeling she could get used to. When Zara got home, she made herself a cup of tea and sat down to deal with Derek's messages. Ryan's advice about not reading them immediately had been good. She felt calmer and more centered now, better able to handle whatever emotional manipulation Derek had sent her way. The messages started out hurt and confused. Why aren't you answering me? I just want to talk. Then they became more frustrated. This is ridiculous. You can't ignore me forever. By the end they were angry and accusatory. I know you're with him. You're making a fool of yourself. He's using you and you're too naive to see it. The final message was the most unsettling. I saw you two at that coffee shop looking all cozy. You never looked that happy with me. Maybe you were never as committed to our relationship as you pretended to be. A chill ran down Zara's spine. Derek had been watching them. He had followed her to Morning Glory and spent their entire coffee date spying on them from somewhere nearby. The violation felt enormous. She couldn't even have a peaceful conversation without Derek inserting himself into the situation. She was still processing the implications when her phone rang. This time it was her sister Tanya calling from California. Hey sis, Tanya's voice was warm but concerned. I got a weird call today. Someone claiming to be your boyfriend called my office asking about you. Zara's stomach dropped. What did he say? He said his name was Derek and that you two were having relationship troubles. He wanted to know if you had been in touch with me if I knew about some new guy you were dating. He said he was worried about you making bad decisions. What did you tell him? Nothing. I told him I didn't know who he was and that if he was really your boyfriend, you would have mentioned him to me. Then I hung up and called you immediately. Zara felt sick. Derek had somehow found Tanya's work number and called her, trying to get information about Zara's life. It was another boundary crossed, another escalation in his campaign to maintain control over her. Zara, what's going on? Who is this guy? For the next 30 minutes, Zara found herself telling her sister everything. About Derek's controlling behavior during their relationship, about her escape 3 weeks ago, about his refusal to accept that things were over. She also told her about meeting Ryan, about how different she felt when she was with someone who treated her with respect. I'm proud of you for leaving, Tanya said when Zara finished. I was worried for a long time, but I didn't know how to bring it up without pushing you away. I wish I had talked to you sooner. You weren't ready then. But you're ready now and that's what matters. Tanya paused. This Derek guy sounds dangerous though. The fact that he tracked down my number and called my workplace, that's not normal behavior. I know. I'm scared of what he might do next. Have you considered getting a restraining order? I've thought about it but I'm not sure I have enough evidence. He hasn't threatened violence or damaged my property. He's just persistent. Persistent to the point of harassment. Showing up at your apartment uninvited, following you around the city, calling your family members. That's stalking, Zara. Hearing her sister use the word stalking made Zara's situation feel more real and more serious. She had been so focused on managing Derek's emotions and avoiding confrontation that she hadn't fully acknowledged how abnormal his behavior had become. What should I do? Document everything. Save all his messages, keep a record of when and where he shows up, note down every interaction. If his behavior continues to escalate, you'll need evidence to get legal protection. They talked for another few minutes before Tanya had to go. After hanging up, Zara sat in her quiet apartment feeling overwhelmed. Derek's reach into her life was wider than she had realized. If he was willing to call her sister's workplace, What other boundaries was he willing to cross? Her phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. How are you doing? Did you make it home safely? The simple check-in message made her feel less alone. She called him instead of texting back. Hi, she said when he answered. I hope I'm not bothering you. Never. What's wrong? You sound upset. Zara told him about Derek's messages and about the call to her sister. Ryan listened without interrupting, and she could hear him moving around on the other end of the line. Where are you right now? He asked when she finished. At home. Why? I don't like the idea of you being alone when Derek is escalating like this. He followed you today, he's contacting your family members? He's losing control of the situation and that makes him unpredictable. What are you suggesting? Would you feel comfortable staying somewhere else tonight? A hotel maybe, or with a friend? I don't really have friends I could stay with, Zara admitted. Derek isolated me from most of my social circle during our relationship. Then a hotel. I'll pay for it. Ryan, no. I can't let you do that. Why not? Because we barely know each other. Because I'm not your responsibility. Because accepting that kind of help feels like I'm using you. Ryan was quiet for a moment. What if I told you that helping you doesn't feel like a burden to me? What if I said that seeing you safe and happy makes me happy too? I'd say that sounds too good to be true. Fair enough. You've been conditioned to expect that kindness comes with strings attached. But sometimes people help because it's the right thing to do, not because they expect something in return. Zara wanted to believe him, but years of Derek's manipulation had taught her to be suspicious of anyone who seemed too generous, too understanding, too good to be true. I'll think about the hotel, she said. But I'm not comfortable with you paying for it. Okay. But promise me you'll call if anything happens tonight. If Derek shows up again, if you hear strange noises, if you just feel scared, call me immediately. I promise. After they hung up, Zara double-checked all her locks and drew the curtains. She tried to focus on her freelance work, but every sound in the hallway made her jump. By 10 o'clock, she was exhausted from the constant state of alert. She was getting ready for bed when she heard footsteps in the hallway outside her apartment. They stopped right outside her door. Zara held her breath, waiting. After a moment, there was a soft knock. Zara? I know you're awake. I can see the light under your door. Derek's voice was calm, almost gentle, which somehow made it more frightening than if he had been yelling. This was Derek at his most manipulative, using a reasonable tone to mask behavior that was anything but reasonable. Go away, Derek. It's late. I just want to talk for a few minutes. I've been thinking about what you said this morning and I think I understand now. You're scared of getting hurt again. I get that. But running away isn't going to solve anything. Zara didn't respond. Engaging with Derek when he was in this mood was like stepping into quicksand. The more you struggled, the deeper you sank. I know you're listening, Derek continued. I know you still care about me even if you're too proud to admit it. What we had was real, Zara. It was messy and complicated, but it was real. You can't just throw that away for some fantasy with a guy you met yesterday. The word fantasy echoed what Derek had said that morning, his attempt to make her doubt her connection with Ryan. But as she stood there listening to Derek try to manipulate her through her apartment door, Zara realized something important. Her feelings about Ryan might be new and uncertain, but her feelings about Derek were crystal clear. She didn't want this, the fear, the manipulation, the constant walking on eggshells. She didn't want to spend her life managing someone else's emotions at the expense of her own peace and safety. I'm calling the police if you don't leave, she said. For what? Standing in a hallway? Talking to someone I care about? Derek's voice remained calm, but there was an edge to it now. You're being dramatic, Zara. This is exactly the kind of overreaction that made our relationship so difficult. The blame shifting was so familiar it almost made her laugh. Somehow, Derek showing up at her apartment at 10 o'clock at night was her fault for overreacting to it. Instead of arguing, Zara picked up her phone and called Ryan. Derek is outside my apartment, she said as soon as he answered. He won't leave. I'm on my way. Stay on the line with me. Ryan, you don't have to. I'm already in my car. Are your doors locked? Yes. Good. Don't open them for anyone except me. Zara could hear Derek still talking outside her door, his voice getting slightly louder and more insistent. He was telling her about all the things he had changed about himself, all the ways he was trying to be better for her, all the reasons she should give him another chance. He's not leaving, she told Ryan. He will. I'm 5 minutes away. True to his word, Ryan arrived quickly. Zara heard different voices in the hallway, Ryan's calm but firm tone, Derek's defensive responses. She couldn't make out the exact words, but the tone of the conversation was clear. Derek was being told to leave and he wasn't happy about it. After a few minutes there was a knock on her door. "Zara, it's Ryan. Derek is gone." She opened the door to find Ryan standing in her hallway, looking concerned but not shaken. Whatever had happened between him and Derek, Ryan had handled it with the same quiet confidence he seemed to bring to every situation. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I'm fine. Are you?" Zara realized she was trembling. The confrontation with Derek, even through a closed door, had left her feeling scared and exhausted. "I don't think I can keep doing this," she said. "He's not going to stop. He's just going to keep escalating until... I don't know what he'll do." Ryan studied her face for a moment, then made a decision. "Pack a bag. You're staying somewhere else tonight." "Ryan, I told you. Not a hotel. My place. I have a guest room and security in my building. Derek won't be able to get to you there. I can't impose on you like that." "You're not imposing. You're accepting help from someone who cares about what happens to you." Zara looked into Ryan's steady, concerned eyes and felt something inside her chest release. She was tired of trying to handle everything alone. She was tired of being scared in her own home. Maybe it was time to accept that she needed help, and that accepting it didn't make her weak or dependent. "Okay," she said. "Thank you." As she packed a small overnight bag, Zara felt like she was taking a step toward something new and unfamiliar. She had no idea what was going to happen between her and Ryan, but for the first time in weeks she felt like she might actually be safe. Ryan's apartment was nothing like what Zara had expected. She had imagined something modern and cold, the kind of sterile luxury space that rich men seem to prefer. Instead, his place was warm and comfortable, filled with interesting art and books that looked like they had actually been read. "This is beautiful," she said, looking around the spacious living room with its view of the city lights. "Thank you. I spend a lot of time here, so I wanted it to feel like home rather than a showpiece." The guest room was equally welcoming, with a comfortable bed and its own bathroom. Ryan showed her where everything was, gave her towels and an extra phone charger, and made sure she had everything she needed. "I'll be right down the hall if you need anything," he said. "And Zara? You're safe here. The building has excellent security, and Derek doesn't know where I live." "How can you be sure?" "Because very few people know where I live. I value my privacy." There was something in Ryan's tone that reminded Zara how little she actually knew about him. He had mentioned family business and connections, he lived in an obviously expensive apartment with high-end security, and he seemed to have resources that most people didn't. But he had never been specific about what he did for work or why he was able to help her so easily. "Ryan, can I ask you something?" "Of course. What do you do for a living?" "I mean, specifically?" Ryan was quiet for a moment, and Zara got the impression he was deciding how much to tell her. "My family owns several businesses," he said finally. "I help manage them. It's not very exciting, but it pays the bills." It was the same vague answer he had given before, and Zara sensed there was more to the story. But she was too tired and emotionally drained to push for details. Whatever Ryan's secrets were, he had shown her nothing but kindness and respect. That had to count for something. "Thank you for everything," she said. "For helping me today, for letting me stay here. I know this isn't what you signed up for when you asked me to coffee. Actually, it's exactly what I signed up for." "What do you mean?" Ryan smiled, but his expression was serious. "I mean that when I see someone who needs help, I help them. It's not complicated or heroic. It's just the right thing to do. Most people would have walked away by now. The drama, the ex-boyfriend showing up everywhere, it's a lot to deal with. You're worth dealing with it for." The simple statement made Zara's chest feel warm and tight. She couldn't remember the last time someone had made her feel valuable just for being herself, without requiring her to earn their attention or affection. "I should let you get some rest," Ryan said. "Tomorrow we can figure out next steps for keeping you safe long-term." After he left, Zara took a long hot shower and put on her pajamas. For the first time in weeks she felt truly relaxed. The apartment was quiet and peaceful, and she knew Derek had no way of finding her here. She was brushing her teeth when her phone rang. Derek's name appeared on the screen, and her brief moment of peace evaporated. She almost didn't answer, remembering Ryan's advice about not rewarding Derek's harassment. But something made her pick up the call. "What do you want, Derek?" "I want to know where you are." His voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "You disappeared with that guy again. This is becoming a pattern. Where I am is none of your business. Everything about you is my business. We were together for 2 years, Zara. You can't just pretend that doesn't matter." It matters, but it doesn't give you the right to control my life now. Control your life? I'm trying to save your life. You don't know anything about this Ryan guy. You don't know what he wants from you or what he's capable of. And you do. I did some more research. His family has connections to some very questionable people. Business relationships that aren't exactly legal. Zara felt a chill of doubt. Was Derek telling the truth, or was this another manipulation tactic? You're lying. Am I? Ask him about his family's business interests. Ask him how they made their money. Ask him why he lives like he does at his age without seeming to have a real job. These were the same questions that had been nagging at Zara, the same inconsistencies she had noticed but hadn't wanted to examine too closely. Even if that's true, it doesn't change anything between us, she said. Doesn't it? You're putting yourself in danger to avoid having an uncomfortable conversation with me. That's not rational, Zara. What's not rational is you calling me at midnight after I told you to leave me alone. I'm calling because I'm worried about you. You're not thinking clearly. This guy has you confused about what you want. Derek's voice was getting softer, more persuasive. This was the tone he used when he was trying to convince her that his version of reality was the correct one. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years, she said, but she could hear the uncertainty in her own voice. Are you? Because the Zara I know doesn't trust strangers. She doesn't let men she just met solve her problems for her. She's independent and careful and smart. But you're acting like someone completely different. Maybe I am someone different. Maybe I'm becoming who I was before I met you. Or maybe you're so desperate to prove that you don't need me that you're making dangerous choices. Zara ended the call without responding, but Derek's words stayed with her. Was she being reckless? Was she so eager to escape Derek's control that she was walking into a different kind of trap? She lay awake for a long time that night, staring at the ceiling and trying to sort through her conflicted feelings. Everything Derek had said about Ryan's mysterious background was probably true. Ryan was clearly wealthy and secretive about his work. But did that make him dangerous? Or was Derek just trying to poison her mind against anyone who might offer her a way out? The next morning she woke up to the smell of coffee and bacon. She found Ryan in the kitchen making breakfast and reading something on his tablet. Good morning, he said, looking up with a smile. How did you sleep? Better than I have in weeks, she admitted. Thank you again for letting me stay here. You're welcome to stay as long as you need to. As they ate breakfast together, Zara found herself studying Ryan's face, looking for signs of deception or hidden motives. But all she saw was the same warmth and concern he had shown her from the beginning. Ryan, can I ask you something? Always. Your family business, what kind of businesses are they? Ryan's expression became more guarded. Why do you ask? Derek said some things last night. About your family having questionable connections. I didn't want to believe him, but I realized I don't actually know much about your background. Ryan set down his coffee cup and looked at her directly. What exactly did Derek say? That your family's money comes from illegal activities. That you have connections to dangerous people. And what do you think? I think Derek is trying to make me doubt everyone except him. But I also think you've been deliberately vague about your work, and I'm starting to wonder why. Ryan was quiet for a long moment, and Zara could see him wrestling with some internal decision. You're right that I haven't been entirely honest with you, he said finally. But not for the reasons you might think. What reasons then? Because when people know who my family is, it changes how they see me. They either want something from me or they're intimidated by me, or they assume I'm someone I'm not. Who is your family? Ryan took a deep breath. My father is Vincent Carlisle. Does that name mean anything to you? Zara thought for a moment, then her eyes widened. The Vincent Carlisle who owns half the real estate in the city? The one who's always in the business section of the newspaper? That's him. You're Vincent Carlisle's son? But he introduced himself to me the other night as... She stopped, remembering the kind older man outside the restaurant who had recommended she eat at Russo's. Oh my God. That was your father, wasn't it? Ryan nodded. He owns Russo's among other things. When I told him I had met someone special there, he was curious enough to go see for himself. So you're... Rich? Yes. Very rich. My family owns hotels, restaurants, office buildings, construction companies. We employ thousands of people and have business relationships with everyone from city council members to federal judges. Zara stared at him, trying to process this information. Are any of Derek's accusations true? About illegal activities? No. My father is many things, demanding, ambitious, sometimes ruthless in business, but he's not a criminal. Everything he's built has been legal, even if it hasn't always been pretty. Then why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to get to know me as Ryan, not as Vincent Carlisle's son. I wanted you to trust me because of how I treated you, not because you were impressed by my family's money. Zara understood that logic, but she still felt unsettled by the revelation. The man she had been getting to know was more powerful and connected than she had imagined. It changed the dynamic between them in ways she was still trying to understand. Are you angry? Ryan asked. I don't know what I am. Confused maybe. A little overwhelmed. I know it's a lot to take in, but it doesn't change how I feel about you or how I want to help you with Derek. Doesn't it? You have resources most people can't even imagine. You could probably make Derek disappear if you wanted to. Ryan's expression became very serious. Is that what you think of me? That I would use my family's influence to hurt someone? I don't know what to think. Yesterday I thought you were just a nice guy who happened to be in the right place at the right time. Now I find out you're essentially royalty in this city. I'm the same person I was yesterday. The same person who walked you to your car and bought you coffee and listened to you talk about your dreams. Money doesn't change who someone is at their core. Zara wanted to believe that, but she couldn't shake the feeling that everything between them had shifted. She was no longer just a woman getting to know an interesting man. She was now someone from a completely different social class getting involved with someone who could probably buy and sell her entire world without thinking twice about it. I need some time to think about this, she said. Of course. Take all the time you need. But even as Ryan said the words, Zara could see the disappointment in his eyes. He had trusted her with his biggest secret, and she was pulling away instead of moving closer. She understood his disappointment, but she also understood her own need to process this new information carefully. Her phone buzzed with another text from Derek. Told you something wasn't right about him. Come home and we'll talk about it. Somehow, Derek knowing about Ryan's identity before she did made everything feel even more complicated. How much research had Derek done? What else did he know that she didn't? I should probably go home, she said. Are you sure that's safe? I can't hide forever. And I need to figure out what I want to do next. Ryan nodded, though he clearly wasn't happy about her decision. At least let me drive you. And promise me you'll call if Derek shows up again. As they drove toward her apartment, Zara stared out the window and tried to make sense of her conflicted feelings. She was attracted to Ryan, grateful for his help, and genuinely enjoyed his company. But she was also afraid of getting involved with someone whose life was so different from hers, someone who had the power to overwhelm her world just as completely as Derek had, even if he did it with kindness instead of control. The question was whether she was being wisely cautious, or whether Derek's manipulation was working exactly as he had intended. When Ryan dropped Zara off at her apartment, she could see Derek's car parked across the street. He wasn't trying to hide his presence anymore. He was making it clear that he was watching her, waiting for her to make a mistake he could exploit. He's right there, she said to Ryan, pointing toward Derek's car. I see him. Do you want me to come up with you? No, I think I need to handle this on my own. But thank you. Ryan looked like he wanted to argue, but he respected her decision. Call me if anything happens. I mean it, Zara. As she walked toward her building, Zara could feel Derek watching her from his car. She didn't look in his direction, but she knew he would follow her up to her apartment soon enough. At least this time she was expecting it. She had barely gotten inside and put down her overnight bag when the knocking started. Zara opened the door. We need to talk about what happened last night. She took a deep breath before responding. What do you want, Derek? I want to know if you're okay. You disappeared for hours with a man you barely know. Do you have any idea how worried I was? The concern in his voice sounded genuine, and for a moment Zara felt the familiar guilt creeping in. But then she remembered Ryan's words about Derek's behavior being designed to make her doubt herself. I was safe, she said through the door. And where I was is none of your business. None of my business? Zara, I love you. Of course it's my business when you're putting yourself in danger. I wasn't in danger. Weren't you? Did you ask him about his family's background? Did you ask him why he's really helping you? Derek's questions hit too close to her own doubts from that morning. She had asked Ryan about his family, and while his explanation made sense, she still felt unsettled by how much he had kept from her. Did you do a background check on him or something? She asked. I looked him up online. It's called being responsible, Zara. It's what people do when someone they care about is getting involved with a stranger. We're not involved. We've had coffee twice. And spent the night at his place. The fact that Derek knew where she had been made her stomach turn. Had he followed them to Ryan's apartment? Had he been watching the building all night? How do you know where I was? I followed you. I wanted to make sure you were safe. That's not protecting me, Derek. That's stalking me. Call it whatever you want, but I'm glad I did. Do you know who Ryan Carlisle really is? He told me about his family this morning. Did he tell you everything? Did he mention that his father has been investigated by the FBI multiple times? Did he tell you about the construction projects that were never finished, the investors who lost millions, the city contracts that were awarded under suspicious circumstances? Zara felt sick. These were details that Ryan hadn't mentioned, accusations that went far beyond what she had asked him about. You're making that up. Am I? Look it up yourself. Vincent Carlisle has been in the news plenty of times, and not always for good reasons. Even if that's true, it doesn't have anything to do with Ryan. Doesn't it? He's his father's son, Zara. He's been raised in that world, trained to use money and influence to get what he wants. What do you think he wants from you? It was a question that had been nagging at her since learning about Ryan's background. What did someone from one of the city's most powerful families want with a graphic designer who was running from her ex-boyfriend? I don't know, she admitted. I do. He wants to play hero. Rich guys like that get bored with their easy lives, so they look for someone to rescue. It makes them feel important and needed. But what happens when the novelty wears off? What happens when you're not grateful enough, or when rescuing you becomes more work than it's worth? Derek's words echoed her own fears, the ones she had been trying not to acknowledge. She had been so focused on escaping Derek's control that she hadn't considered whether she was walking into a different kind of trap. Open the door, Zara. Let's talk about this face to face like adults. No. Why not? Are you afraid of having an honest conversation with me? I'm afraid of you, Derek. I'm afraid of how you make me feel about myself. There was silence on the other side of the door for a moment. I make you feel bad about yourself? Derek's voice was softer now, hurt. Zara, that's not what I want. I love you. Everything I do is because I want what's best for you. What's best for me is being left alone to make my own decisions. Even when those decisions might hurt you? Yes. Even then. Derek was quiet again, and Zara could imagine him processing this conversation, figuring out his next approach. What if I told you I found something else about your new friend? He said finally. Something that might change how you feel about him? What are you talking about? Ryan Carlisle was engaged 2 years ago. To a woman named Isabella Morrison. The engagement ended very suddenly, and she left the city shortly afterward. No one talks about what happened, but she hasn't been seen publicly since. Zara's heart sank. Another secret, another thing Ryan hadn't told her about his past. How do you know that? It was in the society pages when they got engaged. Big news when two wealthy families decide to merge. But there was never any announcement about why they broke up, which is unusual for people in their social circle. Maybe it's none of anyone's business why they broke up. Maybe. Or maybe there's a reason no one talks about it. Maybe there's a reason she disappeared so completely. The implication in Derek's voice was clear, and it made Zara feel cold. Was he suggesting that Ryan had done something to his former fiancée? You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to protect you. There are things about Ryan Carlisle that don't add up, and you're too trusting to see them. I'm not too trusting. I'm trying to build a life that doesn't revolve around fear and suspicion. There's a difference between being fearful and being careful. You used to be careful, Zara. You used to think things through before jumping into situations with people you didn't know. He was right about that. The old Zara, the one from before their relationship, had been more cautious about people and relationships. But Derek had been so controlling, so jealous of any outside influence in her life, that she had learned to keep her guard up constantly. Maybe her willingness to trust Ryan was a sign that she was healing, or maybe it was a sign that she was making the same mistakes all over again. I need you to leave, Derek. I need time to think. About what? About whether you're going to keep seeing someone who's lying to you? About everything. About what I want and what's best for me. And you can't think about that with me here? No. I can't. Derek was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was resigned rather than angry. Okay. I'll go. But Zara? Be careful. Please. Whatever you think of me, whatever mistakes I've made, I do care about what happens to you. Don't let your anger at me cloud your judgment about other people. She heard his footsteps moving away from her door, then the sound of the elevator. Only then did she allow herself to breathe normally. Zara spent the rest of the day researching Vincent Carlisle online. What she found was complicated. He was indeed a powerful businessman with holdings throughout the city, but his success had come with controversy. There had been investigations into some of his business practices, though no charges had ever been filed. There had been questions about how certain city contracts were awarded to his companies. There had been lawsuits from investors and former business partners. But there had also been charitable donations, community development projects, and testimonials from employees who had worked for his companies for decades. Vincent Carlyle was clearly a complex man who operated in a world where the lines between legal and illegal, ethical and unethical, were often blurred. She also found the engagement announcement Derek had mentioned. Ryan and Isabella Morrison had been engaged 2 years ago, and according to the article, they had been planning a spring wedding. But there was no follow-up story about the wedding being called off, no announcement about the end of the engagement. It was as if Isabella had simply vanished from the social scene. By evening, Zara was more confused than ever. She believed that Ryan was genuinely trying to help her, but she also couldn't ignore the fact that he came from a world she didn't understand, with complications she couldn't predict. And Derek, despite his controlling behavior, had been right about several things regarding Ryan's background. Her phone rang and Ryan's name appeared on the screen. "Hi," she said, answering on the third ring. "Hi. How are you doing? Any problems with Derek today? He came by earlier. We talked through the door. What did he want?" Zara hesitated. She wanted to ask Ryan about Isabella Morrison, about his father's business controversies, about all the things Derek had brought up. But she also didn't want to sound like she was interrogating him or that she believed everything Derek told her. "He's still trying to convince me that you're dangerous," she said finally. "And what do you think?" "I think I don't know what to think anymore. Everything feels complicated." Ryan was quiet for a moment. "Would it help if we talked in person? I could come over or you could come here or we could meet somewhere neutral. I don't think Derek is watching me right now, but I'm not sure. Maybe somewhere public would be better. There's a bookstore cafe on Maple Street. It's quiet and has good coffee. Would that work?" "Yes." "Give me an hour?" "Perfect." "Zara?" "Yeah. Whatever Derek told you today, whatever doubts you're having, we can work through them." "Okay." His voice was so warm and reassuring that Zara felt some of her anxiety ease. Maybe Derek was wrong about Ryan's motives. Maybe the complications of Ryan's background didn't have to affect their relationship. Maybe she was overthinking everything because Derek had trained her to be suspicious and fearful. "Okay," she said. "I'll see you in an hour." As she got ready to leave, Zara caught sight of herself in the mirror. She looked tired and stressed, like someone who had been carrying too much weight for too long. She wanted to believe that meeting Ryan would help clarify things, would give her the answers she needed to move forward with confidence. But as she grabbed her keys and headed for the door, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was about to step into even deeper water, where the currents were stronger and the bottom was much harder to see. The bookstore cafe was exactly what Zara needed: quiet, cozy, and filled with the kind of people who were more interested in their books than in eavesdropping on other people's conversations. She found Ryan at a corner table, already nursing a cup of coffee and looking genuinely happy to see her. "You look tired," he said as she sat down across from him. "I feel tired. This whole situation with Derek is exhausting." "What did he say to you today?" Zara ordered a latte from the waitress, then took a deep breath. "He told me about your former fiancée, Isabella Morrison." Ryan's expression immediately became more guarded. "What about her?" "That you were engaged 2 years ago, and that she disappeared after the engagement ended. He implied that something happened to her, something suspicious. And you believed him?" "I don't know what to believe. You haven't exactly been forthcoming about your past relationships." Ryan was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee cup. When he looked up, his eyes were sad in a way that made Zara's chest ache. "Isabella and I were engaged," he said finally. "We had known each other since we were children. Our families moved in the same social circles. Everyone expected us to get married eventually. What happened? I realized that I didn't love her the way she deserved to be loved. And she realized that she was more in love with the idea of being married than she was with me specifically. That doesn't sound suspicious." "It wasn't. But when you're from families like ours, private matters don't stay private for long." Isabella was embarrassed by the broken engagement, especially since it was her decision to call it off. She moved to Europe to avoid the gossip and social pressure. "She called it off?" "Yes. She said she wanted to marry someone who looked at her the way I looked at other women. She was right. I cared about her, but I wasn't in love with her." Zara felt some of her tension ease. Ryan's explanation sounded honest and reasonable, nothing like the dark implications Derek had made. "How do you look at other women?" she asked. Ryan smiled, and something in his expression made her pulse quicken. Like they're the most interesting person in the room. Like I want to know everything about them, what makes them laugh, what scares them, what they dream about when they think no one is paying attention. Is that how you look at me? From the moment I saw you in that restaurant, yes. The simple honesty in his voice made Zara feel warm and nervous at the same time. This was what she had been afraid of, the intensity of her connection with Ryan, the way he made her feel like she was someone worth pursuing and protecting. Derek also told me about your father's business controversies, she said. The investigations, the lawsuits. Ryan's jaw tightened slightly. My father is a successful businessman in a competitive industry. Success at that level always comes with controversy and criticism. But he's never been charged with anything illegal. What about the investors who lost money? The construction projects that were never finished? Real estate development is risky. Sometimes projects fail, sometimes investors lose money. It's unfortunate, but it's not criminal. Ryan's answers were reasonable, but Zara could hear a defensive edge in his voice that hadn't been there before. She wondered if he was being completely honest, or if he was giving her the sanitized version of his family's business practices. I looked up some of the news articles, she said. Your family has a lot of power in this city. Yes, we do. That must be nice. Being able to get things done, having influence with important people. It's a responsibility as much as it is a privilege. People expect things from us and we try to live up to those expectations. What kind of things do people expect? Ryan was quiet for a moment, clearly choosing his words carefully. Charitable donations, community involvement, job creation. We employ thousands of people directly and thousands more indirectly through our various projects. And what do you expect from the people in your life? What do you mean? I mean, when someone from your world helps someone like me, what's the usual expectation? What's the return on investment? Ryan's expression became hurt and slightly angry. Is that what you think this is? Some kind of business transaction? I don't know what this is. That's the problem. What it is me caring about you. What it is me wanting to spend time with someone who makes me feel like myself instead of Vincent Carlisle's son. What it is me trying to help someone who deserves better than being harassed by her ex-boyfriend. The emotion in Ryan's voice was raw and real, and Zara felt ashamed for questioning his motives. But Derek's voice was still in her head, warning her about rich men who played games with women from different social classes. I'm sorry, she said. I don't mean to sound ungrateful or suspicious. It's just that everything feels so complicated right now. It doesn't have to be complicated. Two people met, they enjoyed each other's company and they want to see where it leads. That's not complicated. But it is complicated when one of those people is being stalked by her ex-boyfriend and the other person is from one of the most powerful families in the city. So what are you saying? That we should stop seeing each other because our circumstances are messy? Zara stared at Ryan across the small table, trying to figure out what she wanted. She was attracted to him, she enjoyed his company, and she felt safer with him than she had in months. But she was also scared of getting involved with someone whose world was so different from hers, someone who had the power to change her life completely. I'm saying that I need to be careful. I spent 2 years with someone who controlled every aspect of my life, and I can't jump into something that might end up the same way. You think I want to control you? I think you have the power to control me whether you want to or not. I think your money and influence could overwhelm my life just as completely as Derek's jealousy did, even if you did it with the best intentions. Ryan leaned back in his chair, studying her face. What would make you feel less overwhelmed? I don't know. Maybe if we took things slower? Maybe if I had time to build my own life before getting too involved in yours? That sounds reasonable. What does taking things slower look like to you? Maybe we see each other once a week instead of every day. Maybe we keep things casual until I figure out how to handle Derek and get my life stabilized. And what about your safety? Derek isn't going to stop harassing you just because we're taking things slow. I'll figure it out. Maybe I'll get a restraining order or move to a different apartment or, I don't know. But I need to handle it myself instead of relying on you to rescue me. Ryan nodded slowly. I understand. You need to feel like you're in control of your own life. Yes. Okay. We'll take things at whatever pace you're comfortable with. But Zara? Yes. I'm still going to worry about you. And if Derek escalates his behavior, I'm still going to want to help. Not because I think you can't handle it yourself, but because I care about you. I can accept that. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, both processing the conversation. Zara felt relieved that Ryan had been understanding about her need for space, but she also felt sad about putting distance between them just when their connection was deepening. Can I ask you something? Ryan said. Sure. When you were with Derek, did you ever have moments where you forgot about all the problems and just enjoyed being with him? Yes. In the beginning, especially. That's part of what made it so hard to leave. The good moments were really good. I don't want you to have to choose between feeling safe and feeling happy. I want you to have both. I want that too. I just don't know how to get there. Maybe we figure it out together. Slowly, carefully, at whatever pace feels right to you. Zara looked into Ryan's patient, understanding eyes and felt something settle in her chest. Maybe she didn't have to choose between safety and connection. Maybe she could have both if she was careful and if Ryan was as genuine as he seemed to be. I'd like that, she said. As they walked out of the cafe together, Zara felt more hopeful than she had in days. Taking things slow might not solve all her problems, but it gave her time to figure out what she really wanted instead of just reacting to Derek's harassment and manipulation. She was so focused on her conversation with Ryan that she didn't notice Derek's car following them at a distance, or the way he pulled out his phone to take pictures as Ryan walked her to her car and kissed her gently on the cheek before saying goodbye. By the time Zara got home, Derek had already uploaded the photos to a fake social media account and sent them to several gossip blogs with captions questioning what Vincent Carlisle's son was doing with a nobody graphic designer, and speculating about whether the relationship was serious or just a rich man's temporary amusement. Derek smiled as he sent the final message. If Zara wanted to play games with men from different social classes, he would make sure she understood exactly what that meant for both of them. Zara woke up the next morning to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Her heart immediately started racing, thinking Derek had escalated his harassment overnight. But when she looked at her phone, most of the messages were from numbers she didn't recognize. The first few texts were from coworkers. Saw the photos online? Is that really you? And girl, call me ASAP. Confused and increasingly anxious, Zara opened her laptop and searched for her name online. What she found made her stomach drop. Photos of her and Ryan from the night before were posted on several gossip websites with headlines like Vincent Carlisle's son's mystery woman and Billionaire heir's new romance with unknown local woman. The photos showed Ryan walking her to her car, their conversation at the cafe, and the innocent kiss on her cheek when they said goodbye. Someone had been following them, taking pictures without their knowledge. Her phone rang and she saw Ryan's name on the screen. Have you seen it? He asked as soon as she answered. I'm looking at it now. How did this happen? Someone took photos of us last night and sold them to gossip sites. I'm so sorry, Zara. I should have been more careful about where we met. This is insane. Why would anyone care about us having coffee? Because of who my family is? My dating life has always been considered public interest for some reason. Zara read through some of the comments on the articles and they were brutal. People speculating about her motives, calling her a gold digger, questioning what someone like Ryan could possibly see in someone like her. Others were more supportive, but the negative comments far outnumbered the positive ones. They're calling me a nobody, she said, her voice shaking. They're saying I'm probably just using you for money. Don't read the comments. They don't know you and their opinions don't matter. Don't they? These are people from your world, Ryan. People who might be your friends or business associates or potential romantic interests. And they're all saying I'm not good enough for you. Zara, stop. You are absolutely good enough for me. You're smart and kind and brave, and anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve to have their opinion taken seriously. But the damage was already done. Seeing herself described as a nobody and a gold digger, in print brought back all of Derek's words about her not belonging in Ryan's world. Maybe the gossip was cruel, but maybe it wasn't entirely wrong. I have to go to work, she said. I need to figure out how to handle this. Do you want me to pick you up? The paparazzi might be hanging around your apartment building. Paparazzi? Are you serious? Unfortunately, yes. When there's a new woman in my life, they tend to be interested until the novelty wears off. The thought of photographers waiting outside her building made Zara feel sick. She was a private person who had worked hard to rebuild her life quietly after leaving Derek. Having her personal business splashed across gossip websites felt like a violation almost as bad as Derek's stalking. I'll take the back exit, she said. I'll be fine. Zara, please let me help you with this. I know how to handle media attention, and you shouldn't have to deal with it alone. I need some space to think. This is all moving too fast. There was silence on the other end of the line for a moment. Are you having second thoughts about us? I'm having second thoughts about everything. Yesterday I was worried about Derek following me around. Today I have complete strangers taking my picture and posting my personal business online. I can't handle this kind of attention, Ryan. It will die down. As soon as they realize we're not doing anything scandalous, they'll move on to someone else. But what if we were doing something scandalous? What if our relationship became serious? Would this be my life? Photographers following me around, people analyzing my every outfit and expression, gossip about whether I'm good enough for you? Ryan was quiet again, and Zara could tell he was struggling to find the right answer. The truth was that if they stayed together, media attention would probably be part of their relationship. There was no way around it. I would do everything I could to protect your privacy, he said finally. But you're right that some level of public interest comes with being involved with someone from my family. I can't live like that. I spent 2 years having every aspect of my life monitored and controlled. I won't do it again even if the monitoring comes from strangers instead of a boyfriend. So what are you saying? I'm saying that maybe Derek was right. Maybe we're from different worlds and maybe trying to bridge that gap is going to cause more problems than it solves. Derek was right? The man who's been stalking and harassing you for weeks. Not about everything. But about some things. About the fact that your life and mine don't fit together easily. Zara could hear the hurt in Ryan's voice when he spoke again. Is this really about the media attention, or is this about you looking for reasons to push me away because getting close to someone feels scary? The question hit too close to home. Maybe she was looking for reasons to retreat, reasons to go back to the safety of isolation rather than risk being hurt again. Maybe both, she admitted. Zara, I understand that this is overwhelming. I understand that my family's public profile complicates things. But don't let fear make this decision for you. Don't let Derek's voice in your head convince you that you don't deserve good things. I need time to think. How much time? I don't know. A few days, maybe a week. I need to figure out how to handle this media situation, and I need to get my head straight about what I really want. And what if Derek uses this time to convince you that I'm all wrong for you? Then maybe he's right. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Okay, take the time you need. But Zara? Yes. Don't let other people's opinions define your worth. You're not a nobody, you're not a gold digger, and you're not unworthy of love and respect. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. After they hung up, Zara sat in her apartment staring at the gossip articles about herself. The photos showed a woman who looked happy and relaxed, someone who seemed to belong in Ryan's world. But the comments told a different story. They painted her as an outsider, an opportunist, someone who was punching above her weight. Her phone buzzed with a text from Derek. Saw the news. Are you ready to admit that I was trying to protect you from this kind of humiliation? For the first time in weeks, Derek's message didn't make her angry. Instead, it made her feel tired and defeated. Maybe he had been right about the fundamental incompatibility between her life and Ryan's. Maybe she had been naive to think that kindness and attraction were enough to overcome such different backgrounds and circumstances. She got ready for work, avoiding the front entrance to her building and taking a long route to the office. A few photographers were still hanging around, but they seemed to have lost interest when she didn't give them anything dramatic to photograph. At work, her colleagues were curious but supportive. Most of them thought the whole situation was exciting and couldn't understand why she seemed upset about dating someone wealthy and attractive. But they hadn't experienced Derek's controlling behavior, hadn't spent months rebuilding their sense of independence and self-worth. They didn't understand that privacy and autonomy felt more valuable than romance and luxury. By the end of the day, Zara had made a decision. She would take the week she had asked for, but she would spend it figuring out how to build a life that didn't depend on anyone else. Not Derek, not Ryan, not anyone. She would focus on her work, her goals, and her own healing. If Ryan was still interested after that, if the media attention died down and the complications seemed manageable, maybe they could try again. But as she walked home from work, carefully checking for photographers and avoiding the main streets, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking away from something that could have been wonderful. The question was whether she was being wisely cautious, or whether she was letting fear and other people's opinions rob her of a chance at happiness. That night, she turned off her phone and ran a hot bath. For the first time in days, she felt peaceful. No calls from Derek, no messages from Ryan, no notifications about gossip articles. Just silence and warm water and the chance to think clearly about what she really wanted her life to look like. Outside her apartment, Derek sat in his car watching her windows, planning his next move. The media attention had worked better than he had hoped. Zara was pulling away from Ryan, questioning their compatibility, doubting her own worth. A few more carefully planted doubts, a few more reminders of how different their worlds were, and she would be ready to come back to someone who understood her, someone who would never expose her to public humiliation. Derek smiled as he started his car and drove away. Patience and persistence were paying off. Soon, Zara would realize that he was the only one who truly cared about protecting her from a world that would never accept her. And when she did, he would be waiting with open arms and a promise that they could build a quiet, private life together, far away from photographers and gossip and men who treated her like a temporary amusement. 3 blocks away, Ryan stood at his apartment window looking out at the city lights, wondering if he had lost the best thing that had happened to him in years. He understood Zara's need for space, understood her fear of losing her independence again. But he also knew that Derek was still out there, still manipulating the situation, still trying to convince Zara that she was better off with him. The question was whether a week would be enough time for Zara to see through Derek's manipulation, or whether it would be enough time for Derek to convince her that Ryan was just another man trying to control her life. Ryan had built his career on patience and strategic thinking, but when it came to Zara, all he wanted to do was fight for her. The problem was that fighting for her might be exactly what would drive her away permanently. Sometimes the best way to show someone you cared about them was to give them the space they needed to choose you freely. But as Ryan turned away from the window and tried to focus on other things, he couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out, and that Derek was using every minute of Zara's silence to his advantage. The next few days would determine whether love was enough to overcome fear, whether trust could triumph over manipulation, and whether 2 people from different worlds could find a way to build something beautiful together. But first, Zara would have to decide whether she was brave enough to take the risk. Epilogue. 6 months later. Zara stood in the art gallery, nervous but excited as people wandered around looking at her work. Her first solo exhibition had been Ryan's idea, but the success of it was entirely her own. The months of space and reflection had been exactly what she needed to remember who she was and what she was capable of. Derek had eventually stopped calling when she got the restraining order and blocked his number on everything. He had moved to another city shortly afterward, apparently deciding that she wasn't worth the legal complications he was facing. Ryan appeared at her elbow with 2 glasses of champagne. "The red dot on your lighthouse painting means someone bought it," he said with a proud smile. "Really? That's my favorite piece." "Mine too. I might have had something to do with making sure it went to a good home." Zara looked at him suspiciously. "Ryan Carlyle, did you buy my painting? I might have mentioned to my father that it would look perfect in his office lobby." "You did not." "I did. And he agreed." "Apparently, he's been a fan of your work since that night at Russo's when he first met you." Zara shook her head, but she was smiling. Over the past few months, she and Ryan had learned how to navigate their different worlds together. It hadn't been easy. There were still photographers occasionally, still comments from people who didn't understand their relationship. But they had figured out how to protect what mattered while building something real together. "How does it feel?" Ryan asked, gesturing toward the gallery full of people admiring her art. "Like I finally know who I am again," Zara said. "Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." "Good," Ryan said, taking her hand. "Because I have something I want to ask you." As he got down on one knee in the middle of her art exhibition, surrounded by her work and the people who had come to celebrate her success, Zara realized that sometimes the best things in life came from taking risks, trusting your instincts and refusing to let fear make your decisions for you. "Yes," she said before he could even ask the question, "because sometimes you just knew." And as Ryan slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her in front of everyone, Zara understood that she had finally found what she had been looking for all along. Someone who made her feel safe and free at the same time, someone who supported her dreams without trying to control them, someone who loved her exactly as she was. Derek had been wrong about one thing. She did belong in this world not because of Ryan's money or status, but because she belonged anywhere she chose to be. And she chose to be here with him, building a life that was entirely their own.